So my name is Mark Cook. Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it. I am traveling the country because I'm trying to save our country, and I don't know any other way to do it. So on December 24th, after fighting, actually, let me tell you about the Sacramento story. Actually, this is really important because you guys are California. Early December, I get a call from the clerk, the registrar in Sacramento County, California. Her name was Courtney. And she called me and said, I would like someone to come audit my election department. She asked for an audit and she needed it right away. This is right after the 2020 election, literally the next month. And I said, okay, no problem. She says, how much do you charge? I said, I don't charge anything. Are you kidding me? I'll pay you to audit it. No, I didn't say that. But I said, we don't charge anything. I'll get a flight right away. And she said, well, I can't approve a free bid. So you have to put some dollar amount on it. I said, okay, how about $1? And she said, that's fine. So I sent a bid for $1, laid out what I was going to do, and I was going to bring in a team of people that I was with, and she signed it and sent it back. I said, okay, game on, we're going. So it took me 3 flights. I had to get from DC all the way to here, right? Couldn't have been further away, actually. Except I guess Alaska would have been further away. So 3 flights throughout the night. I finally made it. And when my plane landed, I looked at my phone and I had a ton of text messages on there. It was Courtney. The county attorneys found out about it and called the whole thing off. Now, there are only 2 people I told that I was going out there. And I'm not going to get into that because there's still some stuff to uncover from the 2020 and who's who in the zoo. But that is not over yet. So the county attorneys found out, they called the whole thing off. She apologized. She said, would you like a tour? Since you came all the way here, I feel really bad. And she was super sweet. I said, yes, I would love a tour. And at this point, I had asked God a couple of times, and God just opens doors, and I'm supposed to walk through them. So this was just yet another door. And there was a reason why that happened, and there was something I was supposed to see. So I showed up at the election department. She brought me in, and I spent 3 hours in there. And we talked about a lot of stuff. And she showed me some of the scariest stuff I'd ever seen in my life. And I will share that with you right now, actually. So I'm going to pause my normal presentation slides. And let me pull up a web browser here. And we'll show you that. Okay. So it's greatamericanrebirth.com is the website. And this is the site I created when Scott Presser was asleep behind me, and I was up at that little desk in the hotel room creating this website because at that time, I was like, all right, I got to be a citizen journalist because I know we're all being lied to, and I'm going to bring the news, the real stuff to the citizens. And I was just going to go fly to places, take video, and put it out online. And we knew, everything was getting deplatformed. Everyone was getting deplatformed. So I knew I couldn't trust Facebook or Twitter at the time. So I just created my own website. I'm a IT guy, but I'm not an artistic guy, as you can see, so it's really basic, so I apologize. Okay, so Sacramento, California report. If you click on that, that'll take you to where I documented all of this. And this is not over either, because I don't think this story's been finished. So I wrote up everything that I did, the full background. Does anyone know who Chris Bish is? Yes. Okay, so Chris is who knew Courtney, and Chris called me and said, Courtney needs to talk to you. So that was the connect, was from Chris. And I'll actually see Chris here in a little bit. I haven't seen Chris since December of 2020. So I get to see her, I think, in a couple days. So there's everything that happened. And all the documents are there, the FOIA response, etc., and the pictures. Now, some of you may have seen this picture. The Dominion voting made in China. Right. Yeah. I took that picture. I took that picture inside Sacramento County Elections Department in the warehouse. That's why it's copyrighted with my name. on it, because when I took all of these pictures, I wanted to protect all of these pictures because I was worried about them getting into the wrong hands and them doing something weird with it. And so I went through and copyrighted all these through the traditional, real copyright office, the whole deal. I did it in the airport. I think in one of the airports here, I guess. I literally right after I took them, I think it was a Sacramento, whatever airport's near Sacramento. And I sat there by baggage claim and actually processed all the copyrights.
Wow.
So, but I'll show you some of these pictures. Okay, so, and I don't have time to go through 300 pictures, but I'll show you a few things that really got me here. So this is the warehouse. And when Courtney walked up to the door, there's a fence and there's a gate there, and there's one of those push button locks where you have to push the 5 mechanical buttons, and you put your code in and then you can unlock it and open it. Well, she goes up to it and makes a fist. And she said, I always have trouble with this lock. And she made a fist and pushed all 5 buttons at once. And then tried to open it. I'm thinking, that's not how you unlock these. But she was showing me something, because then the next second, she looked over and said, hey, Bob, can you help me with this lock again? And the guy on the forklift, I don't know if his name was Bob, it's been a few years, but the guy on the forklift gets off the forklift in the warehouse, walks over, pulls his keys, and unlocks the door and lets us into the secure storage area for all the voting machines for the county.
I have one better. Ours just leaves the door open.
Leaves it wide open? Okay. All right.
Get pictures of it.
All right. The whole, I mean, but I'm seeing this, I'm seeing this in December 2020. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the warehouse staff have access to this? Oh my gosh. So he opens the door up, we walk in. The first thing I see is a laptop on a little cart. And the lid has ballot printing station right on it. Find my mouse here, there we go. And I asked her, I didn't want to touch anything because I want my fingerprints on anything, but I asked her, would you open that? And she said, yeah, sure, I'll open it. So she opens up the lid, and this cart is pulled out from the shelf. It's in the aisle. It's not stored away. It's literally in the aisle like someone had just used it. And she opens up the laptop, and here's what I see. Never put your password above your keyboard. It's the first place someone might look. But don't worry, it's really secure. It's California 2020 exclamation mark. No one would guess that for a California election system being run for a 2020 election, right? Don't worry, they take, these are the gold standard systems. They take elections serious here in this country, right? And I asked her, so what does this thing do? She says, oh, it'll print any ballot in the county. And below it was a printer. And I asked her to open up the paper tray. And she pulled the paper tray out, and there's blank ballot paper, thousands of sheets of blank ballot paper. Now, this thing's already in the election department. It's already passed all the checks. Someone could sit there from the warehouse, open that thing up. Luckily, the password's right there, so I don't even have to remember the password. Type the password in, pick the ballots they want, print out all the ballots they want across the whole county and all these different precincts, fill them all out, and set them right by the tabulators or run them through the tabulators. It'd be trivial. And it's all right there. So that was one of the many things she showed me. Here's one of the rooms where all the adjudication happens. Here's the wall outlets. She told me that they plug the adjudication terminals into. that easily could go to, like the network wiring in the building that, sometimes it goes out to the internet or other networks. Those are the adjudication terminals. There's some of the cables. There's these mess of cables all over the place, and it was a mess in there. And then inside the server room, here is the ballot definition computer for Dominion and the tabulation and reporting system. And I noticed there are flash drives all over the tabletop. Flash drives everywhere. And I took pictures of a bunch of them.
Oh, we didn't see any of that. No,
Notice one of them has BIOS on it. Now, BIOS stands for Basic Input Output System. And what the BIOS is, it's the first program that runs when you turn a computer on. And that's what connects the hardware on the computer to the operating system. And that hardware is like a mouse, keyboard, anything USB, wireless card, modem, all that stuff. The BIOS is like the master controller for all that. And it's very strange for a flash drive to be labeled BIOS sitting on a voting system, the ballot programming part of it, that you should never be messing with the BIOS on these anyway after the fact. So that was strange. So I just took pictures. Remember, this is my first time in an election department. I'd never been in one, and I have a small window, and I don't know how many pictures she's going to let me take. And she did let me take these. She just didn't want to be in any of them. So I took all the pictures, and then right behind me is this thing, and that's a network rack. And that network rack has a bunch of servers in it. And I asked, what are these servers? And she said, well, these are all the county web servers. I said, so on the internet, obviously. She said, oh, yeah. That's in the same room as the ballot programming and report and tabulation system. And you'll see right here on the left, that's a monitor. And that is another report and tabulation system for the voting system. And I'll show you, I think I've got that. I'll show you in a second. And that, if you notice the cables, where do they go? Right over into the network rack. There's the front of the network rack with a phone. That's a voice over IP phone. And if anyone doesn't know what VoIP means, it's voice over internet protocol. Now, don't make this big mistake that a lot of people make. Don't think that it takes being connected to the internet to manipulate a voting system. It does not. There are a lot of ways to manipulate a voting system. Also, don't think the internet is the only network out there. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of networks that are not the internet that are out there. Just the most common network that people use is the internet. But the internet is just a network of different connected networks. Okay? So, for instance, when my phone or your phone gets on the internet, what it actually does is there's a SIM card typically in it, unless you have a new phone that has a virtual SIM, an eSIM, but most phones have a SIM card in it. And the modem on the phone, the software, what it does, it looks on the SIM card to see what carrier you are configured on your SIM card. And then it connects to a cell tower, and it registers, and it connects to what's called an APN, an access point name, which is it's a cellular network, not the internet. It's a cellular network on your carrier. And once your phone connects to that APN that's indicated by the SIM card that's in your phone, it's up to the carrier, like Verizon or T-Mobile or Sprint, to then connect you to the internet from that network. So you're connected to this APN network. For Verizon, it's like VZ Internet. But that's just a private network on Verizon's network, not to the internet unless they want you to go to the internet. It's a network of networks. So a lot of our voting systems, as I've researched them, if they do have cellular capability, which a lot of them do, that cellular capability actually puts them typically on a private APN that they purchase from the carrier, like from T-Mobile. I'll just give you an example. And I'm throwing these out there as an example. I'm not saying this is what's happening. But let's say like Dominion has cellular, and they would contact AT&T, for instance, and say, AT&T, we want to buy an APN for Dominion. And we're going to program all of our systems with SIM cards that connect to that APN for Dominion. And we want that APN to connect to our servers in our data center, but not to the internet. So they could have a totally private APN that your voting system equipment connects to, that can all be connected and controlled by anyone else on that APN without ever touching the internet.
That's what we have here.
That's what we have in Ventura.
Okay, and
In case you people don't
common.
know, they do. When you go to the vote and you see your
Voting
voting
centers.
EPO books,
Mhm.
that's what he's talking about. That's
The-
connected back to central computers.
Yes, and so they are connected. So, and what they'll do is they'll play games. They'll say, "Little peasants, it's not on the internet," and the peasants are like, "Okay, well, it's got to be on the internet," because they don't know the difference. They don't know there's other networks. So they play these word games and they take advantage of people's ignorance, and that infuriates me because I don't like people that deceive.
Well, they say it all the time at the board.
And they do, and they keep saying it over and over again because that repetition is used as a psychological weapon. right? It's all about conditioning people. This whole thing that we're going through it's 5th generation warfare. Okay, it's psychological warfare. It's full of lies and deception, and it's an information war, and it's multi-levels deep. It's really disgusting, and they've been doing this for a very long time.
So the question is, what network are you on? It's on the internet. Just say, well, what network?
Well, here's what it matters. What actually matters is it on any network? Is one device able to connect to any other device? If it is, no thank you. And that's the problem. And so if they're connectable to any other device, that's the important thing, not if it's on the internet or not. Don't get stuck in the connected to the internet game. And it is just that. That's why they keep repeating that phrase over and over again, because they want to embed it in your head to distract you from what it actually is. Okay. But like I said, I can go into lots of detail, a lot of stuff. So voice over IP phone, voice over internet protocol. Obviously, this thing's probably on the internet. I mean, literally, there's the report and tabulation server that's plugged in directly to that same rack. So they've been lying to us a lot. It's a pyramid of lies. There's people lying at the very top, and then all these people don't have the technical knowledge to know they're being lied to, so they just assume that these people are right. And then by the time we get to the bottom, where all the little lonely peasants are, where we are, we don't know. We're just told by all these people that it's fine. But I start digging all the way up, and I realize they're lying at the very top. The testing labs are really the biggest problem. Because once the testing labs do their testing, which they're not actually testing, the certification companies certify it, and once it's certified, most secretaries of state say it's fine for use because it's certified. Certified, it's good. Now, Texas is a little bit smarter. Texas has their own people that even if the EAC certifies a voting system, they have to have their own people certify it for Texas. Oh. And when Texas did that with Dominion, they said, oh no, there's no way. This does not pass our tests at all. So that's why Dominion is not allowed in Texas. But they do use HART and ESNS. Oh, don't clap too much, because I'll tell you, those testers, the Texas testers who tested HART and ESNS, they found issues with those, and the Secretary of State just rubber stamped it anyway, knowing that they didn't pass the tests.
Oh.
That's in Texas.
In Texas. Okay, so also in the ballot storage room in Sacramento, I went in there. She had to show a badge, or actually use a badge with an RFID on it. Put a code in and get through the door on the other side. And then we get in there, and there's shelves and shelves of ballots, and they're all batched, and they're put in little bags, tamper-evident bags, like you would expect. And then on the other end of the room is this thing. It is a pallet of ballots. And it still has the pallet jack there, as you can see. It's dated, I think, 12/15 of 2020. And I'm looking at this thing, and there were shelves behind it, but we couldn't get there because this thing was in the way. So she did another thing. She said, let me show you what's over here, but we're going to have to get this moved. Now, I know how to use a pallet jack, so I was about ready to go move the pallet out of the way. And she said, oh, no, I got it. And she went to the door just to the right of the pallet jack, and you can kind of see the base of the door right there, and you can see it's open. She went out there, and that's where the warehouse was. And she yelled again, hey, guys, can you come grab this pallet? And one of them walked to the door from the other side. And this is the opposite where the security stuff is. Pulls his keys out, unlocks the door, pulls the ballots out, the whole pallet, right out into the warehouse. So all the security is a facade, At least they have more there than, I guess, yours. So moves it out of the way, and then we were able to see the other stuff. Now, she showed me all kinds of other stuff, too. If you're curious and you want to see it, click where it says click here for full gallery. I did about 300 pictures, and I tried to categorize them by room name. So they're all grouped by room name. Feel free, if you want to look through them, by all means, you just click here. And I tried to, if you hover over, I tried to put some descriptions on what it was. So hopefully that'll help. Yeah.
Has anybody told you that you can't publish these pictures?
No.
No legal action has been made or anything like that against you?
No.
Okay.
But if someone would like to, by all means, bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go, and I got a lot of questions. So
I'm surprised
yeah.
after 4 years,
Yeah.
nobody's done that.
I think people don't want to touch me because I know too much.
Yeah.
But if they want to, I am ready to roll. Because I got nothing to lose at this point. I've already lost it all. You got nothing to take from me. And I don't like liars. And I don't like thieves. And we have been lied to and had our elections stolen from us in one capacity or another for decades. It is not just the 2020 election. It has been going on for a very long time. And the citizens are so far out of the picture now that we can't see it happening. So really what this whole thing has turned into is not an election system. It's an election illusion system. All right, so that's Sacramento County. That's all I could do was a tour, take pictures, talk to Courtney for a bit. She helped me with a lot of information. She told me that the other thing that's kind of important, this was curious to me, is there's let's see, I probably have it in the tabulation room. Let me see if I have it here. Precinct storage ballot, tabulation, okay. Because you got to see these things, they're really cool. So here's the normal scanner. This is a tabulator, basically the scanner and the computer together is a tabulator. But that's a normal scanner. I've got a few of them now, actually. And you got to see this thing. These things are amazing. There they are. That's the High Pro.
Yeah, we have those.
Okay, so that is a high-speed scan. It looks like a big robot. It's massive. And I saw you had the little scanners and then you had these huge scanners, the high speed and the lower speed. And I said, why do you have two different types of scanners here? That's odd. And she says, well, what we do is the thick ballot paper goes through the high-speed scanners, but the thin ballot paper goes through the lower speed because the high-speed scanners tears that paper up. And I asked, well, why would you have different thickness ballot paper? Wouldn't all the ballot paper be the same? Right. And she said, well, you'd think, but some areas get one type of paper and other areas are mailed different thickness paper. So if I was going to manipulate that election, if I was a bad guy, what I would do is I would send the thinner ballot paper to some areas, and I would know when it came back, I have to have a way to make sure it only goes through the tabulators I've programmed to interpret the ballot differently, the way I want it to be interpreted, if I'm a bad guy. And then the people that are working there would have no idea. I would just tell them, hey, don't put the thin paper through the big scanners because it'll tear it up and we'll lose a ballot. So the people that are working there would be part of the scam without even knowing it. And I think maybe that might be happening.
We saw that.
And some people just don't have the knowledge to understand what's actually going on. There's some innocent people out there. That's why good people are taken advantage of, because we don't see evil. I didn't see evil when evil first came to me. Evil took advantage of me. Evil deceived me before I acknowledged it. And once I got screwed a few times, I was like, oh, there are bad people here. Because my mom had done a very good job of shielding me from all the bad people. I didn't realize there were bad people. Then I started finding bad people. I said, ooh, I don't like them. And then being in the IT industry, when my job is to protect people's computers from bad guys, I had to start thinking like a bad guy and saying, okay, what would a bad guy do with this scenario or this situation? How do I need to protect it? Where would they break in here? And so I approached the election system the same way. The people that have been making the decisions to switch out from the citizen-run elections to all these other computer devices that are used to run our elections, I'll bet most of them just got sold on the convenience factor and they never bothered to think or ask experts, what could a bad guy do with this? What type of abuse vectors would this open up that someone might exploit to manipulate an election? I don't think they ever had that discussion. Now, some people that were implementing all of it clearly knew exactly what they were doing. Because this system could not be designed this poorly by accident.
Yes.
It is designed in a way, it's purposely complex. It's purposely compartmentalized in order to hide the ability to manipulate. And then the people that know how to manipulate it. And there's so many different ways they have to manipulate it. I'm going to go over some of those. All right. But I wanted to show you the Sacramento County stuff because I thought that was really important. And I'm excited to go back to Sacramento County because I'm going back there very soon. Albert Sensors is what you're talking about. Yes. And Albert Sensors was a little bit of another distraction. Now, an Albert sensor is a device that CISA and CIS and CISA, okay, one's a private organization and one's a government organization and a nonprofit, okay? And they kind of work together based on what they need to do to avoid certain things. That's why you have this government agency and then you have this non-government agency that work in tandem. But anyway, what they do is they make this thing called an Albert sensor, and they've been pushing these sensors out to as many counties as they can get them installed in. And they tell the counties it's so we can monitor for attacks, internet-based attacks and threats that are coming into your network. Now, back in the day, there were IT people like me, and we, IT people, would watch our own networks. And we would be responsible for all that. We would install what's called an IDS, or an intrusion detection system. We would install that and take care of that. What's happened is people are getting lazy in our society, if you haven't noticed. And everyone wants the easy button. And so what the government did, how nice of them, is they said, we made these sensors, and we'll put this sensor in, and we'll take this load off of you. We'll monitor your network for you. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Less work for us? You'll do it for free? Sure. And so they started installing these. Now, I don't know how many of these are out there, but what they are, they're just a computer running open source software. And this is what I was told by a representative at CISA. They are a computer running some software that the government puts into your county, and they monitor your stuff. Now, I started looking at the questions that were being asked by the agency to the IT staff, and they were asking a lot of details about the county networks, like how many servers do you have? What servers do you have? What are their IP addresses? What are the user accounts? What are passwords do you use? A lot of very invasive questions that myself as an IT professional, I don't care the government asking. They're gonna get a big fat no, none of your business. Because it's my network, and they are expecting people to hand out information that would make it very easy for someone to break into their network. So here's how this could work out. If I was a bad guy and I had access to that government agency, I would tell people, we'll install this sensor here for you and we'll protect you and everything. And then I'd ask them a whole bunch of information about their network, and then I would have everything I need to know to get into every part of their network and compromise everything. I'd be able to, and a lot of these county networks are connected to the police department as well, all their evidence, all their personnel records. Can you imagine the amount of dirt you could get on people to be able to remotely control, blackmail, threaten, bribe? Do you know how much evidence you could manufacture and stuff into cases and manipulate if you had access to inside county networks? So I would say it's a really bad idea, and as an IT person, I would never let one of those things anywhere near my network. So everyone started focusing on Albert sensors, and there are a few people that went around saying, Albert sensors are hacking our elections. I have yet to see proof that an Albert sensor is hacking an election. Is it possible? Of course. I just don't see the proof yet. And my worry is if everyone just focuses on the Albert sensors only and misses all this other stuff, then we're not going to fix the problem. It may have nothing to do with the Albert sensors. That might just be used for political blackmail. Who knows? I don't know what the heck they're doing. I would never let one in my network. So I wouldn't focus on it. Bad idea. Don't let one in your county. If your county got one, get it out and get an IT person that knows how to set up their own IDS.
We've asked
Simple
the
as that.
question in Ventura, they will not answer.
They won't answer it.
They will not answer.
And I ran it when I was going to run for Secretary of State of Colorado in 2022. I went to the NAS conference in 2021, the National Association for Secretary of State conference. That's a long story, and usually I have about 3 or 4 hours to do my presentation, so I'm having to do this very quickly. But I ran into the CISA table and I started asking questions, and I asked questions about Albert sensors, and about 3 or 4 questions in, this big guy walked in the room straight over, beeline to me, and asked me, what are you doing? I said, just asking some questions. He said, question time is over.
They've done that to us here in Ventura.
And
Not new.
yeah, he said, you can leave the conference or you can leave the table right now. I said, okay, I'll leave the table. And I just started walking around. But don't worry, they sent 2 SWAT team members to follow me around for 4 days and dressed in all black with 2 rifles. That's a half-hour story in itself. And Katie Hobbs, the current governor of Arizona, tried to get me kicked out of the conference because she told all the other secretaries that I attacked her on an elevator. I'm telling you, I could tell you hours and hours and hours of stuff I've been through, but I got to get to the really, really important stuff. So I was Tina Peters' lead forensic expert, also in this fun little mess of everything. And Tina Peters was a clerk in Mesa County, Colorado that saw there was a problem in her election. She wanted to examine the system. And the Secretary of State, the voting system vendor. Are you guys a Dominion County here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, Dominion marks me.
Just
Well, right. Only 6? Okay, because they've been forcing everyone for 10 years. By the way, anyone that signs a software contract for more than 3 years is an idiot. Now, hopefully you have an out in that. Check your contract, get a copy of your contract, make sure you have an out. Now,
It's 9, I'm sorry.
9. I do believe that Dominion Voting Systems has materially misrepresented their product. And as such, no contract should be valid at this point. And in fact, they probably are liable to refund a whole bunch of money. And so that's not over yet either. So I was lead forensics for Tina Peters. I saw what was going on inside those Dominion systems. They are not safe and secure at all. They are not the gold standard. They are set up so poorly, actually, that I'm shocked no one has pulled them off the shelf yet. And I'll tell you, it's not like it's a secret. I have seen other test reports that have been done on these systems in older versions of Dominion, and they still have the same problems that were found years before. They never fix the problems because they don't care. It's not like they're incompetent. I don't think they could be this incompetent. And we know they suck because even Eric Coomer, who was like the lead developer at Dominion Voting Systems, in an internal email inside Dominion, flat out said, "We suck." That was his whole email when they were having all kinds of problems. Another one he said was, "We are so broken all over the place." One of Coomer's very, very intelligent comments.
Yeah.
These are my favorite here.
Yeah, is Eric Coomer saying we suck?
We
are
suck
so
and we are
broken
so
all over the
broken all
place.
over the place. And so when I go around telling people that Dominion sucks and Dominion is so broken all over the place, I love the fact that I'm actually agreeing with Eric Coomer of Dominion, Director of Product Safety and Security. But doesn't that give you a lot of confidence? All these counties that are spending all that money, all their citizens' tax dollars on these systems, when the Director of Product Strategy and Security says right there, we are so broken all over the place and we suck. Boy, that's a great ad. You guys should sign a 20-year contract, even better.
What's the title? This will blow your mind. What's the title to it? ICP modems do what?
ICP modems failing acceptance testing. Yeah. These are the modems, inside the ICPs. See, if the citizens probably don't realize this, but they've built all these computerized voting systems to really have centralized control over elections. And so although Dominion screams for years, our systems aren't connected to the internet, they're not connected to the internet, they are all designed to be connected to other systems and to the internet. That's the whole design premise of them. In fact, back in the day, in the Sequoia days, the software used RAS, which is routing and remote access services. So they had banks of modems, and they would modem in, they'd modem the results, and then Sequoia would actually connect in to the county election systems from Sequoia headquarters to get in to make changes. I've even got an internal email from someone up at Sequoia that they had to make a change to one of the county systems, and they were trying to determine whether they should tell the clerk or not. I mean, and they easily had these connections. And I'll tell you, the RAS, the stuff is still built in. I still see, when you examine the system, I could show you internally, they have all this information. It's still programmed with those capabilities inside the Dominion voting systems, at least 5.1 and 5.13. And they are broken all over the place. But that broken all over the place is not just because they're bad at programming. I think there are other reasons they're broken all over the place. The trusted bill that was done right after the election is the one Tina was trying to put off because she wanted to recount those ballots they had a city council totally flip, completely, all liberal, or sorry, all conservative, and then flipped to all progressive candidates like that in one election. And it's a heavy conservative area, like 70 plus conservative. And that didn't make any sense to her, and neither did to the citizens, because the citizens started calling her saying, there's no way this could be right. We don't even know who these people are. One of them had just moved there 3 months prior. How do you move to a city and in 3 months you win city council? You have to be a really great candidate for that, don't you? In addition to that, while she was still tabulating all the ballots, before they even got the totals, one of the representatives for one of the progressive candidates called her and said, we won. And we won by X number of votes. And Tina said, I don't know how you would know that. We're not even done putting the ballots through the machines yet.
Oh.
And so she wrote it off. Well, she got done putting the ballots through the machines and found out they were right. Somehow they knew the results before she did, before even the machine did.
Oh.
Yes, and I will explain how I think they know that, because I think I figured out what they're doing now. And I figured it out with a piece of information from Dr. Frank, who I met in, I think, May of 21. When I saw the work he'd been doing on the voter rolls, that was the last piece of the puzzle I needed, and the whole thing just clicked in my head. So anyway, I wrote 2 reports with Doug Gould for Tina Peters. That's what the QR code will take you to, and you can find it right on the website also under Get Educated, and then Colorado and Mesa County reports. Reports 1 and 2. Report 1 shows the voting system vendor and the Secretary of State came in and they wiped the whole voting system clean, put a whole new partitioning scheme, formatted the drives, and put a whole new voting system on top of the old voting system, overriding all the log files, all the databases, everything that you would need to examine to see if there's either funny business or if there was a bug in the system. I don't care whether it was an intentional thing or whether it was an accidental bug that caused it to miscount. It does not matter. In the end, you can't trust the results. But they wiped all that out. It's like going into a murder scene with a rag and Windex and wiping down all the walls. That's essentially what they did, the digital version of that. But luckily, Tina was smart enough to take a copy, an image of the voting system prior to them getting there. And when they found out she had that image, that's when they freaked out and raided her office. And she was also smart enough that when they were done doing their trusted build, which, by the way, they were there for 2 days to turn off 1 QR code feature is what they told her they were going to do. How long does it take you to turn off a feature on your phone? A couple seconds? They were there for 2 days. They kicked her out of her own office while they were working. They covered the windows up. And then they did this work in the background. She didn't know what they were doing. And then they said, okay, come on in. We're all done. So she had another image taken. That's the after image. And she knew if someone examined the before and the after, they could find out what they really did. I was the first guy that got to examine it. And I saw it. And that's exactly what they did. They wiped the whole thing out. Then the second report I did was, I was just curious, is the system actually safe and secure? I wanted to know. And it turns out it's not. It turns out within the first 15 minutes, I found a backdoor program on the voting system that allows you to flip votes.
Oh.
Have you guys really not seen this? Do you want to see it?
Yeah, of course.
All right, well, you're Dominion County, so
Can you hack into our Dominion?
I don't hack.
Yes.
So, all right, I will show you this. Hopefully it's set up. I wasn't planning on showing it to you. But let's see here. So I'll put a password in here. Now it's a Colorado image. So I'm guessing you'll never figure out or guess what the password for Colorado's Dominion voting system is, right? Okay. I mean, this is how serious they are about security. It's a joke. It's a total joke. So here's what I saw. And how many of you have Windows machines? Raise your hand if you got a Windows computer. Okay, over half. That's good. All right. So I clicked on the start button, and I just cruised through here. Now, there's a few computer people in the room, I'm sure. I saw SQL Server Tools on here. And I thought right away, oh boy. Because under here is typically what's called SQL Server Management Studio. And Management Studio is another Microsoft program that lets you go right into the database, bypassing what's called the application software. So bypassing the Dominion stuff and go right in the database. And I thought, there's no way that's on here. Can't be. And I clicked on it. And there it was. And then I clicked on it to open it up. Now, SQL Server, just so you know, SQL Server is a database program. SQL Server is a database program. It stores information. And you would obviously think that a voting system might need to store information like ballots and totals and stuff. So it's not bad that it's using SQL Server. SQL Server is a great piece of software. It's used by millions of computers all over the world. But SQL Server Management Studio is a different program altogether. So it brought it up, and I was like, oh, well, it's obviously installed. It came right up. And then I've got an option here to just click connect without putting a password in or putting a password in. So I thought, well, I'm just going to click connect and see what error message I'm going to get. I never expected it to let me in without another password. So I clicked connect, and it opened right up. And then I saw databases here, and I thought, okay, what databases are on this thing? And I clicked on it, and they showed up, all the elections. And I'm thinking, how on earth could these people create a voting system that makes it this easy to get to this information? And they put the tool right on it. It's really stupid. And I saw 2020 Mesa County General. And I thought, I wonder if I can get in it. And I clicked on it, it opens right up. And then tables are areas that are in the database that store different pieces of information, different types of information. I clicked on that, and it pulls up a bunch of tables.
Wow.
I thought, you have got to be kidding me. It couldn't be this easy. And I saw this one called dbo.choice. And I know ballots have choices on them. So I thought, well, I'll try it. So I right-clicked. I clicked select top 1,000 rows. And it pulls it right up. And I saw Biden was a 1. And that what that tells me is when someone was programming this system to set this ballot up, the first entry they put in was Joe Biden. And then I figured if there's a 1, there's got to be a 2. And as you already know, I scrolled up and I was looking for Trump, and I found Trump, and Trump was a 2. So that tells me the first one they put in was Biden, the second one they put in was Trump when they were programming the system. Okay, here's what I thought. I thought, well, if I just flip the 1 and the 2, could I flip the whole election right there? Do I need to go try to figure out where all the ballots are? Or could I just change the identifier and flip a whole election that way? Is it that easy? And so before I did that, I wanted to see what the results of the election were. So I found this other little, it's called a stored procedure, little mini program in the database, and it's called contest results. And I wanted to see what the results of a contest was. I didn't know what contest number to put, and it's asking for a number. What's a good starting number?
One.
That's what I tried. I put a 1 in, and I clicked OK. And there we go. Joe Biden, 31,000 votes. Trump, 56,000. And that was the result in Mesa County. So then I wanted to see, well, can I change that? Is it that easy to change? So I opened up tables again. I went to that same little choice thing here. I right-clicked. I selected edit, and it brought up this table, and I saw Biden there, and I saw the 1, and I figured, all right, I'll put a 2 here, and I'll press enter, and I figured I'll get an error message, because it's one thing to be able to see it, it's a whole other thing to be able to change it. Seeing's not great, but changing is really bad, and it took it, no problem, didn't beep at me, no error message, nothing.
Isn't that a key field?
Nope. Of course not.
It's just a table.
Well, then now you've got a duplicate. For a moment there, you had a duplicate.
And it doesn't even detect that.
It doesn't
And
care.
it easily could.
That's
It
what
could have
I
been
said.
programmed to not allow duplicates, but they didn't do that. Plus, there's a thing called transaction logging, where it logs every change to the database, and that's disabled as well. So I put the 1 in there, and I flipped the 2 numbers now. Let's see if it changes the results.
Oh my God.
Okay, so we go back over here, and I'm going to rerun this report.
I would get fired from
Oh God.
all my clients if I
Debbie, you
did
and I
something
would-
So I've rerun the report, and there you go. Biden, 56,000, Trump, 31,000.
There it is.
That's how it happened.
Now, that's not how it happened, right? We don't know that. This is how it could happen, okay? We don't know, but it's built in.
But they have
The
so
tool's
many-
there.
They can.
Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of other things. For instance, the firewall on this thing is set up to open up ports right to the database. The database is on a default port. It's open up from any IP address in the world. They could have locked it down. They didn't even bother doing that. They specifically selected all IP
Could
addresses.
happen in
They
China.
can connect
Could happen in
to the
China.
database from anywhere.
China.
anywhere.
From anywhere. It's almost like it's set up to make it really easy to get in to make changes like this. And I found another backdoor as well. And actually, it's about 30 feet from me. Let me grab this and show you this, because it's important to drive this point home since I'm here anyway. Paper ballots are still put through a tabulator. This doesn't help you at all, right? Hand counted paper ballots, yes. And don't fall for that little game either, because here's the game they play, and they do this in Colorado. It drives me nuts. The citizens, they just want paper ballots. They think paper ballots is the thing you say. So the citizens say paper ballots, and the election officials, they say, oh, okay, well, you already have paper ballots, little peasants. So you're okay. Yeah, you have paper ballots. Because the citizens think paper ballots hand counted, but they don't say hand counted paper ballots. They just say paper ballots. And so these people know what they're doing. They think we're all stupid. And we have given them reason to think we're stupid, because stupid is as stupid does. And we've been doing really stupid things because we have just allowed them to take our elections from us. Okay, so this is a flash drive. And I'm just going to plug it in to my computer here. So here it is. I have to plug it in the right way. Okay, now I'll keep my hands up here. Watch the screen. So what this is doing is this is using a different backdoor utility called SQLCMD that you get it through the DOS prompt, which most people don't use anymore. But this little utility is still on there. And this allows you to go right into a database and make changes to it. All by the keyboard, which this little flash drive is not just a normal flash drive, it's also a keyboard emulator. And it just went in and made changes to the database. Now, I programmed it so it would show up on the screen, but it could have happened instantly without ever showing on the screen. I could have plugged it in, waited a second, and pulled it out. Now, let's run the report again. All I did was plug that in. Okay, here we go. There you go, Biden 31,000, Trump 56,000. So all I did was plug that flash drive in, and it flipped the results of the election using a different backdoor utility. See, these are the things I'd like to ask Dominion. Like, Dominion, why do you have backdoor utilities on there? Why do you have your firewall set up that way? I mean, you tell people that these are safe and secure and your website has all these amazing features on it that you claim, but yet when I've examined it, you have all these really stupid mistakes that you've made, all these oversights that don't seem to be very secure. I would like some answers. I'd love them to answer those questions on the stand would be great. And maybe I'll get that opportunity soon. So I could go on and on about all kinds of other little backdoors and other problems. Do you know about the web server that's running? The internet web server that's running on the voting system? On the server? Oh, you didn't know that one either? Oh, okay. I mean, I could go into that too. Why would they have a web server running on a voting system? Isn't that weird? Yeah, okay. So if you look on your phone, look for wireless networks, and tell me the first person that sees wireless backdoor. You see it? Okay, there we go. So this is not just a keyboard emulator. This little flash drive is also a wireless access point. And someone could sit in a parking lot right now with this thing plugged in. They could connect to wireless backdoor network and flip results in this election.
Wow.
There is no way you can secure these systems no matter what anyone does. They cannot be secured. So I don't want to hear people say, well, I think we just need better testing, or we need better oversight, or we need hash validation. Sorry, there's nothing you can do to secure them. I don't care. Every system is able to be penetrated. Okay, I'm going to unplug that because I don't want you guys screwing with my presentation. All right. And I know we've only got about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to go through some other stuff. But I wanted to talk about the Sacramento. I think that was really important to share with you. And I wanted to show you this because you are a Dominion County. I wouldn't trust these systems anywhere. You guys should get rid of them as fast as possible. And I'm not saying just Dominion. Don't use electronic voting systems at all. But it's not just electronic voting systems that are the problem. And this big illusion they put on for so many years, they put a lot of effort into creating. And to question their illusion freaked them out. So they're punishing Tina. That's why they put her in prison for 9 years.
No.
She's a Gold Star mother. She's in Colorado State Prison right now. She's in prison this minute, right now. She's 69 years old, Gold Star mom, Navy SEAL son, who passed away a few years ago in a parachute accident.
They killed her husband.
Husband's gone, father gone. She's got no one in her life left, and she stood because the state did it, and it's not a federal issue. However, she was protecting federal election records. And because she was protecting federal election records, the state shouldn't have been able to touch her, and we have an appeal coming up. So I'm also going around the country telling her story, trying to support what she did, because I'll tell you what, she's the bravest person I know. And, absolutely. And she risked it all for her fellow citizens, for her county, and for her country. And half the people in her county think she's a criminal, because what they have done is they use the media in the county to lie about her. And so all these people in the county, half of them think she's actually a criminal and tried to manipulate the election. It's the most disgusting thing ever. She is in there fighting for people that hate her and think she's a criminal. That's the problem. We have a big cookie jar with a massive opening and a whole bunch of holes in it. Everyone's got their hands in it. And those are our cookies.
So for us, in
Okay.
2022, China was caught making ballots for the U.S. elections.
Yeah, the whole thing is riggable in a million different ways. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the election illusion. You understand how the woman got cut in half, right? Did I just ruin the trick for you guys? I hope not. All right. I'm not going to show you the magic show. Listen, there's a lot of control mechanisms for elections. There's bribery, blackmail, threats, political manipulation, mainstream media, social media, technological, big tech, public education, and selection placement, where they actually just give you bad choice 1 or bad choice 2 to choose from because they rigged the primaries and everything else they rigged. The whole thing is rigged. So there's 4 main legs to the election stool: voter registration, voter validation, tabulation, and reporting. Okay, the voter validation system controls the number of ballots that are in circulation. If that's just a database somewhere, and your county might think they have control of it, they likely do not. Okay, and if someone injects a bunch of extra entries in that database, all those extra ballots are going to be floating out there. So what a bad guy would do is they'd put a bunch of extra entries in the database, either just by injecting them or by using the traditional legal means to do it, because they just cut the corners and add some entries in there. And then they harvest those ballots. They usually go in as undeliverable. Bad addresses don't exist. Sometimes the mail carriers actually harvest those and are paid for them. Sometimes they go back to the USPS. And I've had USPS postal workers tell me this. I have a postmaster that has whistleblown on the USPS. They said the USPS is in on the whole thing at the management level. Up at the top, they're in on the election fraud. And I will tell you, that guy that was driving the ballots across state lines that we were all told was fake and made it all up, he was in that hotel with me. He was scared out of his life. He was just a normal citizen. I met him, I shook his hand. He was not making anything up. He was a scared citizen blowing the whistle, okay? I mean, literally, the fraud is in our face. It's everywhere in our face. And the postmaster told me what they do is either the mail carriers, if they're crooked, and a lot of times what they do in these small rural places is they hire contractors as mail carriers. So they hire the contractors, of course, who goes for the contracting jobs, right? People that want to manipulate the election. And they harvest the ballots as they go out to people that don't exist. They fill them in and they shove them back into the system. And we never see them. And your county never knows, because your county just blindly and stupidly goes off the database the state gives them to use. That's the front-loaded manipulation. That's one way they manipulate it, and I think that's how they're doing it most of the time now. But there are many other methods of manipulating it. And yeah, I've had USPS people tell me this is what happens. Okay, so that's the voter registration database. Massive problems. Shiloh's going around cleaning your voter registration databases. So we need to fix the problem. Okay, then you have the voter validation system, which we're told, don't worry if all those ballots are floating out there. We check the signatures when they come back. Okay. Now, you guys, do you have an Agilis machine from Runback that checks the signatures, or do people actually check the signatures? Both? Okay. So let's talk about the people. Is anyone in this room that has been a signature verifier?
No, we've observed them.
We've observed ballots. We've observed them.
Observed. Okay.
We're observers.
Okay. You observed it, but you weren't actually a verifier. Okay. So I've asked the verifiers, were you trained?
We were allowed right there.
I've asked the verifiers, were you trained? And most of the time what I hear is, yeah, we had 15 minutes of training. Sometimes I hear, no, we weren't trained. We were just trained on the job, like right when we were doing it. The longest I've ever heard was 2 hours of training. Then I asked this. I asked, well, what grade did you have to get on the test before you were allowed to actually verify signatures for real, right, when they tested you? And so what do you all think the minimum required score is on that test?
30%.
30%? Anything higher? 90? So a lot of people say 90%. That's an A, right? Okay. Let's just say it was 90. That's an A. Okay. If you make 10% error, if you get a 90, right, that means you make 10% error. That means 1 out of every 10 ballots you don't allow through when it should have allowed it through, and you've disenfranchised a voter, or you allow a ballot through that was a forgery, which means that ballot you just allowed through disenfranchised someone else, right? So you would induce 10% error in the election if you got a 90. So what should it be?
100%.
It should be 100%. Okay, there's no test. I've never found anyone in this country that's actually given a test. What it should, here's what you do. You give them 100 signatures. Some of them are forgeries and some of them aren't. And you have them go through it. And then you gauge them. And if they get 100% of them right, then they should be allowed to do it. You could hire a professional forensic document analyst that has 2 years of schooling, training, and certification, and they're not going to get 100%. So it is 2025. Should we have any election system that built in allows any citizen to be disenfranchised of their vote? Would you be okay if that was your son or your daughter that just turned 18 and is really patriotic and is so excited to vote, and you're like, well, unfortunately, this system is problematic, and so, 10% of the votes, get disenfranchised anyway, so would you be okay with that? Of course not. This is 2025. We have no reason not to count every single vote of every single citizen. Okay, so let's just assume you have an envelope, a mail-in ballot, and you guys probably have mail-in ballots here, right? Yes, of course. So you have a mail ballot, okay? Let's just say we had a forensic document analyst look at that signature, and he spent an hour looking at the signature versus the reference. And he said, there is no question, absolutely, it's a valid signature, and that is the signature. Okay, so let's put that aside and assume it's a valid signature, and all the other information checks out. Now, we open up the envelope, and we pull the ballot out, right? We separate it. When we pull the ballot out of the envelope, how do you know who filled the ballot out? Then what are we checking a signature for?
Exactly.
No, that's true.
That's our
That's a good point.
That's the elephant in the room that everyone has to understand. And we've been going for years, and I'm like, people, it's a fugazi. Exactly, right? It does not matter. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's a distraction. The whole signature verification, it's a dog and pony show, right?
Isn't it valid? Look how great our elections are.
We do signature verification. You have, it's the illusion. It's just to feed the illusion, because there's no way you can know who filled the ballot out to begin with. And if you don't know who filled the ballot out, you cannot check the eligibility of that voter because you don't know who the voter is. And if you can't check the eligibility of a vote, how can we legally tabulate a vote without violating Article 4, Section 4 of our Constitution, which guarantees this Republican form of government? It's really simple. Mail-in ballots violate Article 4, Section 4.
They also violate the California Constitution.
I'm sure of that, and probably every other state too, right? We have a massive problem there. So mail-in ballots is a total joke. Now, of course, some people need an absentee ballot, same thing as a mail-in ballot, essentially. And we create a hole in the election system when we have an absentee ballot. So when you create a hole, what do? Well, you fortify other parts of that to compensate for the hole you just created. You just made the system less secure. So you employ additional layers of protection to make up for it. You don't just say, well, we're going to open it up to everyone, right? We made a hole, so let's just make 1 million holes. You don't do that. That's what stupid people do. And we're done being stupid. So that's the validation. It's a total joke. Tabulation. Those are the black boxes that count our votes. I think we just showed you why you can't trust those, right? This guy right here? Yeah, and every other reason. Okay, so we're not going to spend any time on that. reporting. So even if there's no manipulation anywhere else in the first three legs of the stool, that last one's also problematic. That right there is when your clerk takes the results from the voting system. Does anyone know how they get from there to the TV screen? How do they get to Channel 9 on election night and show up on the TV ticker?
The internet.
They go to the.
Edison Research is part of it. Yeah. Cital Clarity is another one, right? So it goes through these hands. New York Times as well. I mean, you know that it all goes through the media, goes through the New York Times actually controls all these election results as well. It's crazy, right? So here's what your clerk does. And I started asking these questions and no one knew the answer. Even clerks didn't know the answer. I'm like, how can you run an election and not know how your results get to the TV screen? But a lot of them hadn't even wondered that themselves, which is bizarre to me. So I asked a few of them, I said, show me what you do. And they said, oh, here's the email I got from our Secretary of State. And I looked at the email. I'm like, that's not your Secretary of State link. That's a link to Cital. When you click on that, you're uploading them to a company in Barcelona, Spain.
Yep.
Oh.
They didn't know that.
Ventura does that.
Yep.
And
Look at the Ventura website.
so they've been uploading it to this company called Cital. Now, some of them, Clarity Elections. Well, it turns out Clarity Elections is the U.S. subsidiary of Cital. Same company. And then what they do is they take all the results from the clerks, and then they make a pretty little web page with graphs and stuff. And then they make it look just like your Secretary of State site. So they put your logo on it in the same colors, same look and feel. And then your Secretary of State links that election result page. When you click on it, it goes to this page. It looks like it's still staying on the Secretary of State site, but actually it's pulling a page. In a lot of cases I've seen it's called an iframe. And they've changed it, how they're doing it now. But it pulls the information from Cital and makes it look like, again, illusion, makes it look like it's your Secretary of State site. So your Secretary of State is essentially having your clerks use some other company to add up all the totals for you and then reporting it back, and you're looking at what totals they come up with, not totals you came up with or your own elected officials added up themselves. So if you can't control the reporting side, of course that company that's handling it could just change the results, right? We don't have control of any four of these legs, and that's the problem. Now, the last thing I've got to leave you with is you've got to know how elections are manipulated. I'm going to take you through the three orders of election manipulation, because the number 3 is critical you understand, because then you'll know what you need to do to fix this. Okay, first order election manipulation. If the candidate lies about the opponent, and then people cast their votes and you collect the ballots, you tabulate them, and you get the results, you can manipulate an election that way, right? We've all been lied to. Politicians have lied, and we vote based on that lie. So here's second order manipulation. Between collecting the ballots and tabulating the ballots, what if we took that ballot box and we moved it off to the side? And what if we counted the totals to determine the real result? And let's say Bob and Mary were running against each other, okay? And we realized Mary's down by 10 votes. How could we get Mary to win if we have the ballots off on the side?
Take them on to account.
We could fill in some undervotes. If people didn't leave, if they didn't vote for either Bob or Mary, we could just fill in some Mary votes, right? Don't leave undervotes on your ballots, by the way. Never leave an undervote. We could also add some Mary votes to it. And if we were going to add those ballots, and some people might say, well, that's not going to match the number of check-ins we had on the poll books. Well, obviously, we're smart criminals, so we'll inject them in the poll books, and then we'll inject the ballots. And I know they're doing this because we caught them in Texas injecting entries in the poll books in real time. We saw the numbers changing. The clerks, the judges at the voting center, the clocks were off by an hour because of daylight savings. So the bad guys probably thought they were already stored away in the box, but they still had them out, and they were watching them. People were checking in, and they weren't checking anyone in. They were just doing it by itself. So that you add Mary ballots in, or you could throw some Bob ballots away, right? Okay. And then you tabulate them, and you get the results, and you've rigged the election. Okay. That still happens to this day also. That's why chain of custody is so critical, that we don't break it. That's why you count the ballots where they're cast. You don't move them to another room. You don't move them to another building or another city, right? You count it right there. When the polls close, you count the ballots, right? You tabulate them right there. You don't wait till tomorrow either.
Send everything back
I know you can't wait till the next day. Say, oh, it's been a long day. You all go to sleep. You're tired. We'll count them in the morning, right? What's going to happen overnight? All right. So then let's say Mary was not popular. Let's say no one liked Mary. Would people believe that Mary won if you rigged it for Mary? They'd probably question it. So what you do then, if you have the media control, is you do some hit pieces on Bob, okay? You say Bob's under investigation for jaywalking. And then you do some puff pieces on Mary. Talk about how great Mary is, how good she is to her mother. And then maybe you have a concert and you use AI to make it look like there's a whole bunch of people at the concert that Mary has. And then people don't buy that. So you say, oh, darn, we got to get real people this time. So you get some buses and you pay people and you bus them into the concert and then take a bunch of pictures to give the illusion that Mary's popular, to condition the public to accept the result. Okay? So now let's get into third order, and this is, I believe, what they are doing, and this is brilliant, and I don't think Trump even gets this. I don't think anyone in the Trump administration gets this yet, and I think a lot of people that are really high up in the election integrity movement haven't quite figured this stuff out, and it frightens me, and this is why I'm trying to get this in as many heads as possible, so hopefully we raise everyone's collective understanding of this. Okay, stage one. Okay. At mainstream media, FBI, DHS, CIA, and CISA, propaganda tools for the bad guys. They tell us election officials are under attack to drive an artificial wedge between election officials and the citizens. They tell us to expect delays in results. This is the staging part. They tell us our elections are the gold standard. Everything is perfect. Everything is fine. They have a logic and accuracy test that they put on, a little dog and pony show, to not only convince the citizens that the system works fine, which is what they do, is they take some test ballots and they put the test ballots through the machine, and if they get the right answers, they say the system's programmed fine. All that tells you is that it can count them correctly that one time, but it doesn't say it's always going to count them right. And really what that test is, it's not for the citizens, it's really to convince our election officials that the systems are good. That's the con, is on our election officials. They just pass the con on to us. And then once our election officials have told us it's safe and secure, they don't want to question it because they don't want to think they've lied to their citizens. So I'll tell you this also. Have a lot of forgiveness ready for your election officials that were victims also of a lot of these lies. Now, there are some bad ones out there, but a majority of them I found are actually good. They've just believed the people above them. They're not experts. They just think the citizens hate them, and they think the state loves them and will protect them. And they blindly believe the people above them and never thought that they'd be lied to by their boss. So,
No comments.
and some of them are bad, but not all. Okay, the citizens of the United States of America have to actually be free again. And it's so easy for them to become free again. And when we take back control of our elections, we run them ourselves. We count our own dots. We get our own results at the precinct on election day, in person. We count where cast immediately when the polls close. No more funny business. When we remove the control mechanisms that have been plaguing our elections for decades, we will suddenly have a country that actually reflects the will of the people. That's what will give this country back to its people. That's it. It's as simple as that. It all comes down to that. So I mentioned the web server. This is one of the other things. There's so many things in this image. I spent a lot of time examining these images. Just so everyone knows, I was one of the lead forensic examiners on the Tina Peters case. I've spent a lot of time staring at these images, and I started making a list of all the concerns I had in it. But I'll tell you what, the list got so big. I was making a list of everything I saw that was wrong. Every oversight in security or common best practices. And it got so long, I realized it probably would have been faster if I had just made a list of what they did right, because I have thousands of screenshots of issues. But I want to show some people some of this, because I bet no one's ever seen this before. This is from the web server built into the EMS server. This is an internet web server built into Dominion's web server, or Dominion's voting system server. This is where the database lives. These are the reports that they've got in there that the clerks, election officials, have no clue there's a web server running on this thing. And they have no clue that there are reports in this web server, and they're running on unencrypted port 80. So that's the HTTP, not the HTTPS. super safe and
So-
secure
so
for,
Mark-
our nation's
Mark,
voting systems.
Mark.
Yeah.
Are you an expert in this?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Just checking.
Just a little bit. So look at some of these reports here. These are some of the hidden reports that are in these systems that our election officials have no clue about. But I want to just cycle through. I want to pull some interesting reports up that I saw that were kind of shocking. So I'll just go through some of them here. And I don't know why Dominion would have these types of reports available to them when no one else even knew they were there. There's one, let's see, hide portion. I don't know why they're hiding things in the reports. They've got, let's see here, report title, RCV method. So lots of ranked choice voting capability built in there. They've even got some information. Let's see here, hide unresolved write-ins. Count unresolved write-ins as undervotes. It's got a percentage field to choose percentages in the report. Place where you can choose the database that you want to get into. Let's see, hide unresolved. There's some modem stuff in here too, which is really interesting. There's device settings, show voting location, number of precincts, programming groups. These hidden reports are real interesting there. Let's see here, tabulators, number of tabulators, latitude, longitude. Why are they keeping track of latitude and longitude and building accessibility in the database for the voting system? Not to mention toilets. If they have toilets in the voting location, that's an odd thing. Wonder why they have that. Let's see here. We got, is that the last part of it? That may be the last here. And there are some that talk about modems and internet connectivity, tabulators, number tabulators, show blanks, show written overrides, number tabulators. Look at all that. Very interesting low-level stuff that they're able to pull these reports directly from the voting system. I'd like to know why. I'd like to know why they have all this information about.
Well, I don't think that gives us any. There's anything nefarious they can do with pulling those reports. I guess I could technically, but
absolutely, absolutely,
you could pull information.
Pull a lot of information, and if they can pull information from the database, they can make changes to the database as well
by making sure they can take care of the log files. Then get in and make changes, and you never know. Which is what Chris York talked about long before we had any sort of an analysis or reports from there.
So if you want to know what a joke the LAT test is, or the LAT is, look up Volkswagen Dieselgate. Okay? Right? Volkswagen programmers got caught for rigging the car computer to detect whether it was on an emissions test or not. And if it was on an emissions test, it ran one algorithm. If it wasn't on an emissions test, it was on the road, it ran a different algorithm, so they could beat the emissions test. So if someone was able to do that, two people were able to do it and sell millions of cars all over the world just to sell some cars, don't you think someone might rig software in a voting system to steal a country? Yeah, of course, right? So they suddenly raise the margin of human error. They conduct a manipulated election. They design the risk limiting audit to limit our ability to see the fraud. Okay, and here's what the risk limiting audit is. It's a joke. Okay, first of all, you guys have a 1%?
1%.
That's hilarious. Is it 1% of what though?
Yeah, it is a 1% of what.
Exactly. So it's a 1% of something, and then you multiply all that out, and it's actually like a 0.00000 something percent. It's a joke. So what the risk limiting audit is, I'll give you a layman's explanation. Let's say pick someone. Okay, let's say you owned a grocery store. Okay, and you hired me as your new manager. And all the other managers were closing in about an hour and a half, but I'm closing in a half hour. And you can't figure out how I'm closing so quickly. And you come up to me and you say, Mark, you're amazing. I hired you only a week ago and you're closing in only a half hour and it took everyone else an hour and a half. What are you doing so great? And I said, well, I created this thing called a risk limiting audit that I do. And so what I do is I only check 2 of the registers at the end of the day. And if those 2 have the right amount of money in them, I just put check marks in all the others. And that's what the risk limiting audit is. It's not a risk limiting audit. It's actually a risk enhancing audit. Okay? That's the crazy thing. It's a risk enhancing audit that identifies as a risk limiting audit. And that is called a what? It's called a trans audit. You guys should know that here. You're in California. Come on. Okay. Don't miss audit me. Okay. Right. My pronouns are pissed off, actually. That's what they are. Okay. So they explain any mistakes we do find. They say, oh, it's just an isolated error. What's the word they use all the time? It's a glitch. It's a glitch. By the way, you got glitched out of your freedom, just in case you were wondering, okay? It's a glitch. There's no glitches, okay? Glitches in computers happen when there's a hardware malfunction. That's when software glitches, okay? It's something that the software can't account for. In the hardware, that's a glitch. We're not having glitches, okay? We're having intentional manipulation being disguised as glitches, okay? Then if we find enough mistakes, they say, well, you're right, but we're not going to bother looking into it because it didn't affect the results of the election. Right? We've heard that over and over again. That's why we're starting to see all these patterns. Okay, so that's stage one. That's the staging. Okay, now they create headroom. They remove the citizenship question from the census. Do you remember that about 15 years ago when we couldn't figure out why they did that? Okay, what they did is they created a census system that we now cannot validate. Okay, because if illegals are on our census, how on earth are we ever going to validate the information on it? We're going to go find the illegal? By the way, do you really think there's a line of illegals coming in asking to fill our census out? Was that a movement? I missed it. Right? So it was just for them to abuse the census, okay? To abuse our population numbers. So it allows them to inject more entries into the census, to inflate the census, okay? To create headroom, so they can then inflate the voter registration numbers. Because if they don't inflate the headroom of the census first, you end up with more registered voters than you have in the county. And the peasants start to figure out there's a problem. And they've done that. Yes, I know. That's why we caught them. Yes. And then we don't want more voters than there are registered voters because the peasants figure that one out too, because we're smart peasants. And so what they do is they've got to increase the number of registered voters as much as possible, because the real voters and the registered voters, this gap right here is the headroom that they manipulate the elections in. And they've got to create enough headroom to be able to counter the votes. And if a lot of citizens feel this way about something, that means they need a lot more headroom to work with. And that comes back to your question, what happened in 2016 and 2020, right? 2016, they couldn't pull it off. They didn't have enough headroom. So they tell us that there's record voter registrations. They've got to condition the citizens because we're going to see record voter registration numbers, right? But they're not real people registering. They're the fake registration entries that they're putting in the system. They even have voter registration drives. So you think, well, I saw a lot of voter registration drives, so maybe it makes sense that there's more registrations. They might even send someone all around the country registering voters to make it appear as though there's a lot of registered voters showing up in this system and they're all organic. But that person going around the country registering voters, if they are registering someone, they're registering voters that are low propensity, that don't usually vote. And if they don't vote and they get registered, someone can steal their voter registration record, tweak the address, harvest the ballot, right? So that's actually the most dangerous thing to do. And by the way, you don't flip a state by registering voters. Voting flips a state, but registering voters does not flip a state. So anyone telling you that you flip a state by registering voters is deceiving you. And then I would question everything else that individual also tells you. And you don't want to vote early. That's also really dangerous. And you're going to find out why voting early is bad. And we know mail-in ballots bad. So if someone's pushing mail-in ballots and early voting and telling you that registering voters flip states, they might be setting you up. All right, so they tell us record voter registration. They take the voter registration control away from the counties. Now they have the DMV doing it. Now they have all these NGOs that are doing it because the whole goal is just to get as many entries in there as possible to make as much headroom as possible. They even register underage children to vote,
Yes.
okay? And they can't vote, but it does open it up to mistakes like them accidentally getting ballots, which has happened. And then when they become 18, they automatically activate their records. How nice of them. So even if that kid is not going to vote, their record goes active automatically on their 18th birthday. Perfect opportunity to be able to harvest it and use it to send a ballot in for them.
That's right.
It's,
The minute you push back on any of these.
I know.
things,
I know.
that-
Of course, and that's how you know
Right.
that it benefits them anytime you question it, because we're on to them. We know what they're doing now. Okay, they create phantom records, and typically what I've seen is they take an existing record and they copy it, they get a new voter ID, and they tweak one little thing in the record, like they change a letter and a name or one little part of the address. And because then if they get caught, they explain it away as a typo. These are professional illusionists, right? So they're not just going to pull them out of thin air. It's better to take an existing one so there's always a plausible excuse. These people are smart. And then if you do find a record that needs to be removed, they make it almost impossible. You could literally go register don't do this, but you probably could register your dog to vote. You could probably walk in with Fido and you could say, I'd like to remove this registration. My dog he got registered to vote by accident. We'd like to remove him. And the election official would probably look at him and go, well, I see it's a dog, but by law, we have to wait for Fido not to vote in 2 elections before we can remove the record. Right? That's part of the scam too, right? Okay. So then, here's how they finish the deal. This is the feedback loop they've created, and it's brilliant. Okay. So they, of course, use the mainstream media, FBI, DHS, CIA, and CISA, record voter participation. We get all that. Then, here's what they do. They let us cast our votes. And they watch. They monitor who votes. Why do you think they do that? Here's why. If I know your party affiliation, would I have a pretty good idea of what your ballot would look like? I'd be fairly accurate, right? Okay. What if not only do I know your party affiliation, but I have all your voting history? What if I go by all the other databases of information that are available also, like your geolocation data? What if I buy all your purchase data from Amazon? What if I buy the credit card data from Visa and see where you shop and what you buy? All the databases are out there. You've agreed to all your data being taken. All those terms of service that none of you ever read, and you just click OK because you want that free software.
Yeah.
That's what it's giving them ability to do, and that's a big business. Collecting that data and selling that data is big business in itself. It's not free. Gmail, perfect. Every email you've ever sent on Gmail, right? Or Yahoo. Or Microsoft. They're able to mine all of that. And so imagine you're a bad guy and you want to manipulate elections. And you buy all that data and you're a bad guy, so you have plenty of resources to do it, right? We know there's billions of dollars in elections, right? So you buy all these databases. Now, what if I had a database on you and I knew everything about you? Everything. I would really know what your ballot's going to look like. I know how you feel about everything. So if I just knew what your ballot looked like, what races were on it, and I knew everything about you, and I knew you voted, I could build an election result model on the side here. And I could put credit for your ballot in this result model, a model of the election results. I don't even need to look at your ballot. I just need to know you voted. Now, how would I know that if you mail your ballot in? Well, these guys are real smart. I think I've said that a few times, right? Here's what they did. They created this mail-in ballot tracking system. And they created it and told us it's for us little peasants to feel comfortable voting by mail. And they told us that so we'd pay for it. And if we caught them making it, we'd say, yeah, we asked for it. But it wasn't for us. It was for them. It was so they knew you voted by mail. And then they could add the credit for your ballot in the election result model they're building. Then, if you don't vote by mail and you go in person, you're checked in on an electronic poll book. And they know instantly there. Remember that electronic poll book that's on that APN on the SIM card that's in it, right? They know right away you showed up to vote there. and they add the credit for you in their election result model. So they've created a system that allows them to know what the results of the election are without ever having to look at a ballot. So they don't even need to have it go through the tabulator anymore before, because they'll know what the results are. Remember back when Tina got that call and they told her what the results were and that they had won? And she's like, I haven't put it through the machine yet. How do you know? So they build an election result model, and if they know what the results of the election are, and they know what they want them to be, they just subtract, and they know exactly what they have to stuff in. And they've got all this headroom they've created in the voter rolls.
It's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. They've harvested the ballots. They've got all those mail-in ballots that are floating out there. They've got them, they fill them out, and they put them back into the system, and they get tabulated. Now, could they do this all in one day? It'd be really hard to do in one day. So they sold us another convenience. Are you shocked? Early voting. And early voting is not for our convenience. Early voting is for their convenience. So they have plenty of time to manipulate the election going up. And they need a few weeks to do this. And it turns out they've needed longer and longer to do it. Now, when they had early voting come out, let me ask you this question. Raise your hand if you are a procrastinator. Okay, so everyone that did not raise your hand are liars. Because we're all procrastinators. And that's what happened. When early voting came out, people were still waiting. And that wasn't helping them. So they needed to think of a creative way to scare people into voting early. So they did the whole, anytime there was a weather incident, what they do, all over the news. On election day, they talked about horrible election day weather incidents. Power going out, snowstorms, tornadoes, and they got everyone so scared that like, I better vote earlier, I won't be able to vote. And then the Maricopa County thing where they shrunk the ballot down, they had the long lines, and anytime there's a long line at a voting center, it's all over the news. It's to condition the public and channelize them to vote early. Even the RNC comes out with bank your vote, right? That was the biggest scam ever. All right, and I'm not saying Laura Trump is scamming us. She just didn't know any better because she's surrounded by people who are lying to her, right? That was a scam. Anyone pushing early voting is scamming us. Now, they may not be intentionally doing it, but I'll tell you what, if someone won't even have the conversation about it, they refuse to talk, then they're scamming. And there are pastors that won't have that conversation. There are people very high up and very trusted in our movement that refuse to have the discussion about early voting.
Conspiracy theory.
Now, what they hate, though, is they hate election day voters. Because the election day voters, they can't plan for. They have to be very conservative before election day. And then the election day voters, they have to right then stuff in all the extras that can counter them. And they can't do that all in one day. So what did we give them? Another week for ballots to keep showing up. Sometimes it's 2 weeks in the mail because the USPS is really slow and they're really inundated because they're just more ballots in this election than they expected. So we don't want to disenfranchise someone, so we have to give it a couple weeks for all the ballots to come in. So then what happens when you front load all this manipulation like that, by the time the county gets it, they can recount those ballots all day long. They can have a 100% audit. And they'll never catch it because all of the manipulation happens before it ever gets to the county. This is one of their tricks, and this is, I believe, the biggest one they've been doing. That's why COVID. They needed mail-in ballots to be able to shift enough. And they couldn't just tell us you're getting mail ballots. Everyone would have flipped their you-know-what. But what they did is they created an environment that the citizens begged for mail-in ballots because these people are sick criminals, and they are evil. And if people are so scared to leave their house and they want to vote, we have an election coming up, please give us mail ballots. They went from saying no to mail ballots to begging for mail ballots. These people are not stupid that are doing this to us. All right, then they've got the backup override. If they're still not able to pull it all off, what do they do at the very end? They did this in 2020. They override. They stop counting in the middle of the night. They stuff a bunch of extra in. They manipulate the voter rolls. They publish the target results that they want, and they tell us, don't worry, those are unofficial when we start questioning it, right? This is unofficial versus official results. And they say, just sit down, peasant. Just relax. You're fine. And then a week later or so, they get enough stuffed in, and they massage everything around, and they say, okay, These are the official results, and they always end up matching because they're so good at putting on the magic show. And then the seal and cleanup. They use the mainstream media, FBI, DHS, CIA, and CISA to condition us, tell us results will be delayed, right? They told us that, right, way before the election because they needed time to rig it. They were conditioning us to not freak out when there's delays. Oh, they kept telling us there were going to be delays. That didn't work on most of you, but it probably worked on a whole lot of citizens. They tell us there may be mistakes in the election. They told us that too. I made these slides way before the 24 election. We heard all this stuff. They withhold and destroy data needed to audit. They have the risk limiting audit they hide behind. Oh, it passed the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Little peasants. They explain mistakes away as isolated human error. They ensure mistakes are within the margin of loss. They rush and threaten to certify. Like, if you don't certify, you're going to go to jail. Because as soon as you certify an election, it raises the bar to question it. And if one county doesn't certify, the whole state can't certify. One county can hold the whole state up. That's why they're threatening people to certify. And they tell us there's no widespread election fraud. They mock and attack election deniers, and they tell us we are suffering from this new horrible disease called election denialism. So fourth order manipulation is when they start using AI. And by the way, they're using AI right now. Our next election, they will be using AI for all this, and what we've been seeing, we will not see any longer, more than likely. It'll probably be very difficult, if not impossible. They know that we know that we know that they know, right? All of it. Okay, so this is game on. This is it. This is the final hour. This is the fight for the United States of America. Either the patriots are going to save their country and they're going to push out the criminals, or the criminals are going to win. If someone comes from up top and says, we have to do hand count elections for federal elections, which I hope it does come from up top, which it may. I've written parts of executive orders.
Nice.
I'm hoping we see that. And then we're going to need to hand count ballots. If that doesn't happen for whatever reason, if we're going to have a country, we're going to have to hand count our ballots. So no matter which way this ends, you're going to be hand counting ballots.